want to talk to you about cash as well. Have you got any? No. If you're still using it, the use of cash in shops rose for the second year in a row after a decade of falls. What's going on there? COVID, I'm sure, has played a part. But are you more inclined to use cash now than use your card or pay on your phone or other means of payment? I want to talk about money for a second. Are you still using cash? I think I've, for some reason or other, joined the royal family because they don't carry cash at all anymore, which can lead to issues. Particularly if you go to a restaurant, it's quite hard to tip sometimes if they don't give you that option when you're paying by card. The whole thing of paying on your phone and just wafting your phone over the machine to do stuff makes it so easy to spend money these days. There are many reasons why cash maybe could and should be king. Cash use in shops has risen for the second year in a row. It was falling for decades as we were using alternatives. According to the British Retail Consortium, we're now using cash is helping us to budget better. If you've got it in your purse or wallet, you know you've got it. If you haven't, obviously. Well, joining us this morning is Ron Delnevo, chair of the Payment Choice Alliance. Thanks for coming on, Ron. Good to speak to you this morning. Is it a surprise that the use of cash is going up?
Not at all. We've had the pandemic. We put the pandemic behind us now. And during the pandemic, there were all sorts of false health scares about cash. But people have now recovered any confidence they lost in using it. And also, many people are feeling hard up now. And I'm told that 15 or 16 million adults are now using cash to budget. So that's more than a quarter of the adult population. So for those two reasons, not at all surprising that cash use is going up.
What does the Payment Choice Alliance want to see here?
Well, surveys have shown recently, Link, the ATM network, did a survey, and it showed that 81% of adults in the UK want to retain the right to use cash, the option to use cash. We did a survey last year through YouGov, and 71% of the adults interviewed said they wanted a law put in place giving them the right to use their cash when and where they choose. So that's what we're looking for. We want to see the wishes of the majority respected and that they're able to use their cash. And there's no doubt it's probably not a major problem in Stoke at the moment. I spent a couple of years working in Stoke and I didn't find too many cashless businesses, but in parts of the country it's a serious problem and it's getting worse everywhere. So we need to put a stop to that because people need to have the right and the confidence that their cash is going to be accepted.
Well, there was a cash machine issue in Burslem for a time, in that there wasn't one. That's been resolved now and they've put one in somewhere. But that's another point, isn't it? That sometimes actually accessing cash can be quite hard before you start spending it, trying to get it away from the bank.
Yeah, well, that's why I was in Stoke. I was trying to improve cash access in Burslem. I ran a project there to help do that. But yeah, it was a scandal that Burslem had been left without an ATM. But all around Stoke, we've seen bank branches close. There was one Lloyd's branch near Burslem still open when I was there, but I don't know if it's still open today because the banks have just been closing their branches and taking their ATMs away. And of course, they say that the public don't want those local financial services, but every time I go to a bank branch now and I visit many branches to see what's happening, they're all busy. There's many members of the public there trying to go about their daily lives. So we need to see more access to cash. You're absolutely right, Stuart. We need to see the post offices properly funded so they can go on providing cash. We need more ATMs. We need more of those bank hubs that they've been telling us about. But, at the moment, we've only got about 100 and we really need 1,200 of those around the country equipped with ATMs, accepting cash deposits and also allowing people to withdraw cash. The thing that's clear is from all those surveys recently, however often people use cash, they still want the option to use it. For a variety of reasons, people are anxious about security now, but, data being stolen. 2 million people had had their identities stolen online last year in this country. So there's anxiety about that. There is anxiety about hacking of software systems. People have confidence in cash. They know it always works. It doesn't crash. And we need to safeguard the public's right to use cash. And as you rightly say, we need more access to cash so they can get the cash that they want, so they can spend it.
There's a bit of a mixed message from retailers here, though, I think, Ron. Some places you will go to and it will say card only, and by that they mean card, or you can use your phone or other electronic means. Presumably because they don't want to bank money or have money on the premises, I'm guessing. The flip side of that is there's a bit of a thing going on as well, and you see posters up in some shops. I've seen it in a few towns around here saying, if you pay £5 on your card, so much of it goes to the bank, and then by the end of it, the bank gets all the money and we get nothing. What's going on here? What do the retailers want? Well, yeah, absolutely.
What's going on is a lot of small businesses have discovered they can't get the great deals that the big retailers get from Visa and MasterCard and other payment providers. So they end up paying high fees. And also they suffer things like cashback. I'm sure you wouldn't do this, Stuart, but if you were to wander into a pub and order £20 worth of drinks and then tell Visa or MasterCard afterwards that you hadn't actually had those drinks, then the publican has to prove conclusively that you ordered those drinks. And they're often asked to provide, for example, closed-circuit television footage of you buying the drinks. Well, that is very difficult and a time-consuming thing. So those small businesses usually lose out. They throw up their hands and say, well, we can't do that, so we'll just take the loss. So I've heard of businesses saying they lose 3% a month of their sales just through, not being paid by the card companies. And that's on top of the fees they're paying. Now, that doesn't happen to the big retailers. Visa and MasterCard wouldn't dare do that to them. But the little boys and girls get badly treated. And, if we're not careful, they'll all be put out of business. If cash disappeared, they certainly would be put out of business, because those fees would just go on going up and up for the small retailers, and the big retailers would survive, obviously, and prosper, but the little ones would go entirely.
Now, at the risk of potentially fueling the tin hat brigade conspiracy theorists here, there's also a concern that if we were to go cashless, and there's been talk of that in recent years, clearly this latest report suggests that's not going to happen anytime soon, that would mean that Big Brother could be watching every transaction you ever made. There'd be an electronic record of it. People could hack into it and see what you've been spending. If, for whatever reason, the government had time and the resources to find out what we were all spending our money on, they could. Rogue agents around the world could, and so on. How realistic a concern is that?
Well, even before that, we've had earlier this year the collapse of the Microsoft systems around the world because one guy late at night was doing an upgrade somewhere in America and it all went badly wrong. So that was without any rogues being involved. That was just a mistake. So systems are vulnerable to human error. But on top of that, we all know that, and we're hearing about constantly about hacking, and realistically, it's going on. Just yesterday, the Scottish Rugby Union had to stop selling tickets for a rugby international because the system had been hacked, and they're investigating that. And that's just one example. We're seeing those examples countless times every week and all around the planet. So those are realistic concerns. And that's before you start talking about governments who might want to keep people from being free by using the tracking that they would be able to do through every purchase being on card or digital. I mean, the Chinese government is famous for the control that they have over individuals, and they're even exporting the technology they use around the planet. We're not suffering that yet, but just because we're not suffering it yet doesn't mean it won't happen. You don't have to call it a conspiracy. There's a plan to give certain governments and certain organizations more control over us through having more knowledge of what we're doing. And that might suit some companies and that might suit some governments, but it doesn't really suit individuals who want their privacy respected and value true democracy, which is where people are free to say what they think, when and where they want to say it. So yeah, those are realistic dangers. I wouldn't overplay them now in the UK, but in the next few years, I think people will become more and more aware of those dangers. I already mentioned the number of people, I think it was 2 million, that had their identity stolen last year in this country because of online activity. So we've got to be cautious. We've got to be wary of a future that we won't want. And if we safeguard cash and the right to choose what payment method we use, that will help to maintain democracy and stop our privacy being taken away from us.
Ron, fascinating talking to you. Thanks so much for coming on for a chat this morning with us. Ron Delnevo, chair of the Payment Choice Alliance. Essentially, they want cash to stay, but they want you to have the option. And seems reasonable, doesn't it? 0800 121 8080. Are you surprised that more people are spending cash